And honestly, first 3 days, 17 cases.
I told you it's a machine. I got nothing to get place to start back because they're like, okay, we know what you do. Go back into it. But like, it's general surgery. That's yes.
Was a conversion over. So it was.
Okay.
It was.
Oh,
and
no,
then
we were in
book
your
was
case.
for-
I just walked out there.
He's so funny. He's just a dude.
He's such a dude. He's like a Mississippi boy. You know? He's like very like. He's like the funniest.
Okay, everyone, I am Christine. I titled my presentation Safety Serial to Serial Abdominal Exams. How a business girly became a surgical trainee. Okay, so I just wanted to go through these photos. So here is me on match day. I was very excited to have matched at the University of Minnesota. This middle photo is me my first night at Regions. I just placed my first ever order. It was for an adult regular diet. It's me with my parents. They put those outfits on immediately after I matched, and I don't think they put them like for like a week. So I grew up in Stillwater, Minnesota. I'm originally from Minnesota girl through and through, right on the border of Minnesota and Wisconsin. I have one older sister, and then my parents, they all still live here in Minnesota. That bottom left is me teaching my nephew JJ about sun safety at the lake. And then this photo is of Sophie Christine. She is my niece. She was born the night before match day. So my sister appropriately gave her my name after she stole my thunder. This is my dog Frankie. She's a golden retriever. She's very cute. And then I have my dad on the upper left, and then my mom down there. I went to the University of Minnesota for undergrad, so I called that part one. So there's me on the left going to game days, having a lot of fun. I lived in T Hall, so I got to walk past the hospital all of the time, which was awesome. I studied economics in undergrad. You might be thinking, like, what does that have to do with medicine? And the answer is nothing. So I actually started working for General Mills after I graduated college. So I call it my gap career instead of my gap year. So I worked on a lot of fun brands, one of them being Annie's Natural Organic, and then I also worked on Big G cereal. So this bottom left photo is me launching our Annie's Natural Organic brand. So when I worked on the business, they weren't really prevalent in the Salt Lake region, which is where I lived at the time, so I got to launch that brand. This second photo is of Pillsbury dough, which seems kind of strange, but one of the projects I worked on at General Mills was orienting the dough cans vertically. So if you haven't noticed that, you will now, because I feel like every time I walk in the grocery store, I now notice it. These are the fun pajamas I made everyone in my family wear. They are of the Doughboy. And then here I am with some of my colleagues on my first day, and then there I am with Poppin' Fresh, which is the Doughboy's name. And then I always like to say to you, like, yes, I do like Hamburger Helper. My favorite is the beef stroganoff, and then my favorite cereal is Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So then I did kind of a big pivot, and I went to medical school at the University of Washington. So I think I grew up, I always wanted to be a doctor. I was first gen college student, so I didn't really know how to get there. I think being in a different career, figuring out what I was really passionate about and what I wanted to do with my life kind of helped me make that switch. So I did classes that night to take the prereqs, and then I graduated at the University of Washington. So there I am on my white coat day. I had a lot of fun experiences there. I think those who are familiar with the WAMI program might know that we get to rotate in any of the 5 states. So I had a lot of fun on my rotations. Here I am at Denali National Park in Alaska. I did a pre-medicine rotation up there. The bottom left, I was at Glacier National Park. I did family medicine and whitefish right outside of the national park, which was really fun. And then I also like to add this middle photo. So Harborview, one of the hospitals that I rotated at, is actually where Grey's Anatomy is based off of. So we thought we looked like the Grey's Anatomy cast. I think we were a little delusional, but it was really fun. And then I included this other photo of just like Narcan and safe injection kits because I dedicated a lot of my time to street medicine while I was out in Seattle. I also included this because I was really sick on a rotation and I still was a Gopher fan, so I thought that was fun. And then a little bit more about me. So just like some fun things that I like to do, but I love Love Island, UK only, not USA. I love The Real Housewives of Rhode Island, and then James Rollins is my favorite author. I just read this book and it was great, so I recommend it. On the bottom left, I love to trail run, so there I am again in Alaska out on a trail, and then here I am at the lake. This was me actually on the 4th of July jumping in the water, and yeah, I just love spending time with my family, so I'm very, very excited to be home. And I'm super excited to get to work with all of you. So thank you for your time today.
Okay, it's my turn. Hi, I'm Kaisa. This is my presentation about myself. I get a lot of questions about my name. So it's a Swedish name. That's why it's spelled this way. Pretend the J is an I if that makes things a little bit easier. But let's get into it. So I also am a Minnesota girl. I grew up kind of like in the middle of the state. I actually grew up on a farm, so that's why I like to say that I grew up yeehaw. But it was like a little small family dairy farm. So if you ever had any cheese in Minneapolis between like the 2010s and 2017, might have came from my farm. Just saying. But yeah, this is like pictures of my family. That's my mom and my 2 older sisters. We have quite a big age gap. So I'm 26 now. They are 38 and 43, so a little bit older than me. I was a big cat fan ever since the early days. I kept finding pictures of myself with just miscellaneous cats when I was a child, when I was trying to find pictures for this presentation. And I actually, a little fun fact, I like them so much that my first word as a baby wasn't mommy, wasn't daddy, it was actually meow. And I pronounced it the way that the cats did. So, yeah. And then these are just some pictures of like my sister's kids. My grandma. Yeah. So after high school, I ended up going to the University of North Dakota. I also was a first-gen college student, so when I was like applying to colleges, I only applied to 2, UND and then also the U of M. Got into both, and I was like, UND's cheaper. I'm going there. It's a little bit of an interesting campus. We at one point had a moose that was just like loose running around. I ended up joining a sorority because my sister told me, since I'm a little bit of an introvert, I needed to join a sorority, otherwise I wasn't going to make any friends in college. So I did that, and she was right. I made some really good friends doing that. These are 2 of my best friends from undergrad up there. They're both elementary school teachers now. They live in North Carolina and Ohio. I was in student government, and then that's a picture of me like getting my acceptance into medical school, also at the University of North Dakota. I worked quite a few jobs during college. I was like a CNA, and then also I took a gap year afterwards where I worked at an outpatient surgery center and kind of figure out that surgery was what I wanted to do with my life. So then I was at UND for med school again. These are a bunch of my friends from med school. This is my buddy Zach. He's doing ENT now in Wisconsin. That's us. Actually, we were at a conference and decided, since we were in Denver for the conference, we were going to just go hike a 14er instead of going to the conference that day. And then he proceeded to do Anki at the summit. So that was fun. This is me and some of my friends having a SpongeBob themed birthday party. And just some other pictures from med school that were fun. I broke my wrist during flag football practice, not even the real game. So that was an interesting time. This picture on the left over here is kind of like my most fun experience from med school. I was doing technically a surg-onc acting internship, but my attending brought me on this like global surgery trip to Guatemala. So we were there for a week doing like surgeries in partnership with the local doctors. And that was a really cool experience and kind of influenced a lot of my current interests. And then these are the things I like to do outside of medicine. Also a big fan of the outdoors. I love trail running, and also backpacking. So that's like going backpacking in the Grand Canyon. That pictures in the Boundary Waters. Me doing the Glacier Half Marathon with one of my friends. Read and travel. So those are pictures of Venice a few years ago, and then also in South Korea just a few weeks ago. I do pottery, so those are some mugs I made. And then these are my lovely cats. This is Pickle. She's a little bit of a monster. And then that's Miso. And now I'm here. I'm really excited to be back in Minnesota. I feel like it's always just felt like home to me. I'm doing the rural program, so I like that I get to be in Minneapolis, which I love, for 3 years, and then I get to be up in Duluth, which I also love, for some time as well. So yeah, I'm just excited to be here. Thanks.
So Pickle is evil.
He is evil.
He's very cute. So can we start like a running?
I like to, in case you have more.
My government name is Andrea Bennett, but so I drove the elephant in the room. I guess I am now Dr. Dre. I've been nicknamed this for a long time, but I guess there was a case of nominative determinism. And I'd just like to thank my medical school for this photo that they made us take prior to residency applications. That will help for when I run for political office. So I'm from Colorado. I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but grew up sprinkled in Colorado, which you may recognize from Coors Beer. My parents were geologists and biologists, so I spent a lot of time outdoors. Building fairy houses, reading, that kind of thing. And that's me and my brother, looking like little nerds. So I took a little bit of a serendipitous journey or not serendipitous, winding journey to medical school. Bopped around, lived in a lot of different places. I went to high school in Wales, actually, in this sort of Harry Potter-esque experience. Then in undergrad, I went to Brown University and studied Slavic studies and computer science. Which also have nothing to do with medicine, really. But towards the end of college, I had a bit of a crisis, realizing maybe I didn't want to do like software engineering and cybersecurity kind of things. So I did a big pivot and joined the Peace Corps, which brought me to Guinea, West Africa, for 2 years, where I taught math and made a lot of good friends, had a good time, and kind of had a lot of time to think, and came to medicine and specifically surgery as something that I thought was interesting, useful in like almost any context, including globally and ever around the world. So I did a 1-year post-bac at Bryn Mawr College, which is actually like modeled after Wales, interestingly. And then I made it to med school. So I went back to Colorado, University of Colorado, which was great because that's where my dad is. This guy, my closest family. He tells literally every single person he comes across that I was a med student, now I'm a doctor. No one is safe, like the Home Depot clerk, literally no one. Yeah. And then that's my brother. He is an arborist in Vancouver, British Columbia, and he actually has certifications in tree medicine, so he's kind of a tree doctor. And then, yeah, this is just sort of my progression. We have like white coat ceremony, match day, and then graduation. While I was in med school, I did some research in like rural versus urban outcomes in surgery, as well as some med ed research. I founded the CU branch of socially responsible surgery, and yeah, overall I really loved the experience, and kind of going forward I would like to dip my toes a little bit in surgical oncology and global surgery if possible. In terms of hobbies, I have arranged these into moving around hobbies and sitting down hobbies. These are the moving around hobbies. A lot of similar things to my previous interns who presented. I like to backpack, trail run, climb, ski. I love Just Dance, if anyone ever wants to Just Dance with me. And then I love almost any kind of art, craft, anything like that. I have probably tried it or it's on the list. Mostly I will be fun reading and watching my programs. These are some books and TV shows I've liked recently. This is some sweaters that my med school friends and I knitted and then got professionally photos taken. I've gotten into jewelry, and then my latest venture was kind of wedding planning for my best friend's wedding in May. I made her reception dress, I altered her wedding dress, and did all the flowers for a 200-person wedding, which was a lot of work. And then finally, these are my two tiny, wonderful cats. I have to make it through residency to provide them the life they deserve. And I'm happy to be here and looking forward to getting
And turn.
I updated it. It's new pictures, and I updated my age.
We see this.
I'm Casey. If you were here last year, you can probably just not pay attention. Who am I? So I grew up in Goodhue, Minnesota, small farm town in southeast Minnesota. My first job was working on a dairy farm. I like to say it taught me to go to college. Goodhue, my dad was a nuclear engineer, and there's a power plant down in Dublin. I went to St. Scholastica for undergrad, where I wanted to do physical therapy and play football. I'm not a physical therapist, and I broke my ankle about 2 weeks and couldn't play football anymore, so that didn't go very well. But I did meet my wife, so that worked out. I changed my major into biology and thought about medicine. I went to the University of Minnesota in Duluth for medical school. I've been married for 4 years as of 5 days ago. And I'm a wilderness search and rescue technician. That's what a lot of my pictures are, because like I was looking back, I didn't take a lot of pictures of anything else. So sorry. That top right picture is a high angle rescue of a guy who drove his four-wheeler into Lake Superior, unfortunately. So that was really fun. Not for him. My hobbies are fishing, hiking, camping, video games. I like to play rugby because my doctor told me to stop playing football, so I pivoted to rugby. I've given up rugby and moved to jiu-jitsu now. I didn't add that. Thanks, Solveig. Point that out. I have 2 wonderful Australian Shepherds you'll see shortly. I had to include this cringe near selfie to prove I was a security officer at one point. My gap year, I graduated in December of 2019. I kind of think about it like getting on the LAFT helicopter out of Vietnam. I missed COVID undergrad, which is really great. I spent time working in a group home because I had a biology major, and that doesn't get you anything. They tried to stab me a couple of times. I got really tired of that, so I went to hospital security. That was much better. We got our first dog in my gap year, Eli. He's the black and white dog. And then 2 years later, we got his sister, Harper. They're the best dogs ever. They do require a lot of work to walk it. And that's me in waist-deep snow, knee-deep snow to anyone else on the top up there. So why surgery? Why University of Minnesota? The through line of my my medical school career was all about looking into emergency medicine. I didn't match, and I ended up here as a prelim resident last year, and I fell in love with everything we do. I loved having longitudinal care with patients. I loved being involved in diagnosis and treatment of the disease process, and I applied here, matched, and I'm so thrilled to be here. Also, my family lives here, and that's great that I get to be by them. So, research interests in medicine. I love acute and trauma care. I know that's surprising. I'm working with a tech startup called Texas Aeromed Lab. If you have $6 million, let me know. So we can start making our product. We make drones. And then I also work with the Hennepin EMS team and help with their research as well. So that's me on a field exercise we did back in May. That's me.
Hello everyone, this is my presentation, Matthias Scott, by Matthias Scott. I have lived in a lot of states. So I'm initially from Colorado. Back in Colorado, I did a lot of hiking. I was into barrel racing. I love riding horses. It's one of my favorite things to do. Ended up moving to New Jersey, a slightly less beautiful state. Went to high school there, lived by Newark, which is also not the most beautiful part of New Jersey, but you can still get into the, woods and forests out there if you know where to go. I ended up living in Vermont for a couple years too. There, I was a professional snowmobile transport driver, which was an interesting and fun job. And then I also was a ski patrol there, and then ended up going to med school in Pennsylvania, and Hershey at Penn State. So these are some of my hobbies. I like scuba diving. I've done that in a lot of different places. I learned initially when I went at the Great Barrier Reef. I did like a trial thing there, fell in love with it. So I've done that in a lot of different places. I love spelunking. Don't know why the G fell off there. Pretty formatted, but I do like it. The tight spaces are fun, although occasionally you get panicked when your shoulders can't move. I do a lot of baking and cooking. My philosophy is the more chocolate I can fit into something per bite, the better. I do a lot of fishing, rock climbing, mountain biking is one of my long-term hobbies. Kayaking and then camping, and I like to try and combine these when I can, doing bike packing camping, doing camping with kayaking. I kind of like to just get out into the woods for a while. Case in point, these are some of my trips I've done. Right before med school, I decided to do something fun, which my mother hated, which was going on the Arizona Trail for about 500 miles through the desert, spending days not seeing people. That water there is actually water I filtered and drank about 2 gallons of. And while I think it was safe to drink, I at least didn't have the bowel issues I was scared of. It tastes exactly what it looks like, which is not great. Some of the other trips I've done, this is from the Great Wall of China. That's actually in an abandoned section of the wall. And we found a farmer who was willing to walk us up to a section that was on her land. And she was about 85 and was laughing at me and my 20 to 30-year-old brothers who couldn't keep up with her. And we didn't speak any Mandarin. She didn't speak English. But some things don't require language, even with the barrier. She was laughing at us just because we could not keep up with her and the heat. St. Lucia is a place I've been a number of times. My family does medical missionary trips there when I was growing up. Costa Rica and Spain are all places I just went for fun. So why general surgery? There's a couple things that I've done. Ski patrol, I really loved. I did a lot of multi-traumas. I love the fast-paced nature of it, and also just getting to ski for fun is a lot of fun. It's a demanding kind of career or a job where you have to kind of be thinking on the fly, address situations as they come, and I really enjoyed it. Another thing I did in college was the medical special operations with the FDNY, and they do a lot of really fun training. They have a ton of money, so they do simulations like on actual subways where you go down, they fill it with gas, you can't see, you have to go rescue people who are like stranded, hit by trains. It's like simulated terrorist attacks. It's a lot of fun. These are a couple of the other things I've done that kind of led me towards the path of general surgery as well. This left picture is I did scuba diving for a search and rescue club, and I trained the canines. So it's kind of a 2-part thing where the earliest part is I go underwater, and since I exhale bubbles, the dogs will smell it and bark and alert. And prior to me going down, the trainer will give me one of their toys. So I come up, and these dogs are like absolutely spooked the first time, but I give them a treat or like the toy that the handler gave me. And so I kind of reward them, although usually they're pretty scared when someone emerges from the water. But also as part of that, I'll take like human skeleton, like usually larger bones, femurs and skulls, and I'll wedge them into bricks and hope they don't float away and scare other people in the lake. And the dogs can actually smell that through the water. So I actually train search and rescue dogs, and that's really rewarding. I still get emails on a weekly basis about a dog I train that managed to find some kid and actually save their life. So it's a really fun thing to do. This right picture is in St. Lucia. It's where we did our medical missionary work. And we would stay, that's actually like the housing we'd stay in. So while a lot of people traveled and stayed at 5-star resorts, we stayed in the hospital housing, which was about 120 degrees in the summer, and was a humbling experience where you had to choose between either sweating and getting under the covers and not eaten by mosquitoes, or you can get chewed on by mosquitoes and stay above them. So it was not the most fun sleeping conditions, but I would actually, as a young kid, I was autoclaving cotton balls, filing x-rays, working in a hospital. So I did what I could as a young person there, and it kind of taught me about the absence of general surgeon really affects the healthcare system. Some of the research I've done. In college, I did HPLC, and I was working on actually the assessment of the void volume of the columns. It was the way we were analyzing chemicals, and actually I wrote a pretty important paper that's changed the way that we assess the way volume is calculated in them. Doesn't sound very exciting, but it was a big deal if you're into HPLC. Another project I worked on was the cancer biomarkers. In glioblastomas, there's actually interleukins produced by the tumor. And while the standard of care was kind of biopsying and doing MRIs, you could do blood tests and actually pick up on that biomarker. So without having to do invasive tests, you could actually pick up if a tumor had returned or if your resection was not complete using a blood test, and it actually was beating MRIs by weeks. Finally, I did a trauma paper on the dangers of car seats, how they're misused, how they are properly used, and it was a public health piece trying to include and kind of help out with the way car seats are used, which are not optimal in many scenarios. And finally, that takes me to here, where I'm absolutely happy, delighted, and honored to be. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Abby Wooten. Just to start out, this is like an introduction to my important people. So this is my husband Ryan and my dog Balto, and us loading up our lives to move out here from Vermont. A little bit of background, I grew up in rural Pennsylvania, went to undergrad at the University of Vermont. That was the picture on the left is probably one of the most influential experiences of my life. I joined the University of Vermont Rescue Squad, which is an entirely student-run ALS ambulance service that provides care to the greater Burlington area. It taught me a lot of responsibility, taught me that medicine and taking care of patients really was my passion. Even in the hardest of times when I was having to leave classes to go on EMS calls or going to a cardiac arrest when I'm trying to study for a biochem final, I realized that through the good days and the bad days, I absolutely wanted to be in medicine. The other influential experience from undergrad was working in radiation oncology as a medical assistant. I met some of my early mentors and supporters of my career in medicine, and I'm very grateful for that. And ultimately ended up going to the University of Vermont for medical school, where I met some of the greatest friends of my life. We went on a variety of adventures, similar to other presentations, very excited about mountain biking, backpacking, trail running. I also very much love the winter. I promise I can survive a Minnesota winter. That seems to be a question I'm asked a lot, even coming from Vermont. And these are just some photos of me and my friends out on different adventures. I'm very excited to be in Minnesota, check out frozen lakes. The middle photo is polar plunge. My friends in med school, after every exam or rotation, we would go for a run and jump in the lake, preferably when it's frozen, preferably when someone already cut a hole in the ice and we didn't have to do that work. It's a lot of fun. A little bit of a background of how I ended up in general surgery and how I ended up here. With my previous work in radiation oncology, I was pretty adamant that I would go into rad-onc or medicine to med-onc. And I told this to all of the surgeons I worked with on my third year rotation. I was like, this is great. I love this. Like, thank you for teaching me, but there's no way I'm going to do this. It's just not what I was expecting. And I kept going back to cases in my free time, and they just started laughing at me. They're like, yeah, of course you can come join this case, like, but you realize, like, you have the day off. And I'm like, yeah, well, I want to be here. So I met some really amazing mentors in surgery and eventually accepted that they were right and I was wrong, and I was definitely going into surgery. Because I shouldn't look that happy with a surgery textbook if I'm telling people that I don't want to do it. And then the photo on the right, two good friends from med school. The one on the left of the image, that's John. He's an ENT intern here. I kind of credit him for why I'm here. We were very close through all our preclinical time studying. I have a lot of respect for him. He came to Minnesota for an away rotation for ENT and told me all about it. We had a lot of the same values. We're looking for similar things in our programs, and I figured I'd check it out and loved it, and I'm really grateful that he pointed me in this direction. And so this is me at match day. My husband and I, we immediately bought a house here, went to a Minnesota Wild game. Kind of the rest is history. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you all for presenting it as like a needed depth to getting to know each of you. I appreciate you taking the time. Also wanted to thank our whole resident body for a great turnout to kind of meet our new interns and participate in the first great round of the year. So it's busy. The first week, July is always tough. So getting here on time and present for each other is greatly appreciated by all. So, thanks everyone. We're done a little bit early. I think Dr. Liu is going to present hernias closer to 8:30. So you have a few minutes to kind of get some rest for those of you on night. Otherwise, I will use an outside study.
I think it's combined.
I was looking at it. Usually it says combined, but this time it says
you.